Hi Booktube. I recently got back from like a 1 month long trip to the US where I did a lot of exploring, ate a lot of different food, and obviously went to a ton of bookstores and bought a ton of books. So I want to go over them. But I actually think that it's best to start with this book, which I bought just before traveling to the US. I bought it here in England, but I got it on eBay from someone who I assume got it in the US because this is the US edition. And I think the reasons why I got this can really set the tone for the reason why I spent a bunch of money over there. Basically, it's this. It opens really easily, it's super loose, the binding is so floppy. It feels nice to hold, in contrast to the UK version, which I have. And by the way, I haven't read this book, so now I have two copies of this. But this is the UK version. It doesn't open easily at all. It feels like a brick when you hold it. The spine's cracked even before I've read it. The pages are like clumped like this. I want to read this book soon. I thought I would read it before I traveled, which is why I had that kind of urgency to buy it. But in terms of editions, I just feel like I couldn't have read that UK version of it. I mean, obviously I could have, but I would have ended up reading it on the Kindle, which is no problem at all. I love the Kindle, and that's kind of why my buying has changed, which if you saw my relatively recent Kindle video, you'd understand that because I have access to all these books now so cheaply, usually free, on a tiny thin device that I can take with me anywhere and do anything with, my book buying has become way more selective, which is good. So now I'll only buy a book if I like the cover and I like the physical item of the book, because if I don't, then I'll just read it online, then I get the contents without the annoying physical version. But in the case of something like this, it feels nice, looks nice, all of that, so I got it. And that's kind of the philosophy that I went to the US with in terms of book buying. So the first part of my trip was from London to New York. The first place I had to go was obviously the Strand bookstore. If you've never been there, I think now, after going multiple times in the same trip, I went there the year before when I went to the US as well, I think it's the best bookstore in the world. Steve Donahue may get a little annoyed with that because I'm going to mention another bookstore which he loves, but I think the Strand edges it. The Strand is famous for having, I forget how many miles of books, like in total, if you add up all the shelf length, because of the outside sale lot and multiple floors of books and how big each floor is. If you add up everything, it's like a huge number of miles of books. That's sort of their marketing gimmick. But they've got a great combination of used and new books. Used books in the store are half price, like half of what their retail price is. I think it should be discounted more, but half price for good quality versions of books is great. The new editions, the sale out on the outside is much weaker than Steve Donahue's favourite bookstore, but it's there. And the first book I got was this, The Master and Margarita. Just like with Dune, this is one of those books where the UK doesn't sell editions that I like, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. If I can get a nice edition in the UK that's floppy, nice to read, then there's no way I'm going to add to my allotted weight that I can bring on my luggage. But, this you can't find in the UK. Maybe on eBay, more expensive reseller, but the Penguin Deluxe Edition is really only a US copy. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for a long, long time, and I was waiting for this edition. I didn't feel like a real urgency to read it, so I thought I'd wait for this. This is translated by the great P&V duo that everyone knows from Russian literature. One spring afternoon, the devil, trailing fire and chaos in his wake, weaves himself out of the shadows and into Moscow. I think after tackling 100 Years of Solitude at the beginning of this year, that this was a natural next step in terms of that magical realism, because those two are probably the most famous works in that subgenre. Just found this on my bookshelf from the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, or St. John, as you probably say here in England. This is a great cathedral on the Upper West Side. It's like a little postcard from it. I'm pretty sure that's the one. The one on like 113th Street or something like that. Yeah, it's good. Go there. And from the Strand's great sales section, I got this, which is a manga version of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. I think this is like a volume 1, and there are going to be more, or there are more, but for that price I thought I'd at least try it out. I had an earlier experience with Lovecraft with his Call of Cthulhu, which I thought was a lot more boring than I'd expected or was looking for, but at the same time had so much potential. It felt like it was the description of a great novel, not the actual novel or novella or short story itself. So it felt like if you read that, then you'd want to go on and read something more, but if that was the only thing, if that was the work, which it was, then you'd certainly feel dissatisfied, or at least I did. But I thought maybe this manga direction might be a different way into a writer that I'm interested in and I want to give another shot to. And actually, if you read the description on the back, the blurb, it sounds a lot like the 80s film from John Carpenter, The Thing, which I really love. Oh, a little bonus as well. I think I got these from Barnes & Noble. These are Theory 11 playing card decks. I have a bunch already, but they're widely available in the US and not so in the UK. So I got this Lord of the Rings version, and I got this this Man of Steel version, which I think just came out for the new Superman film. Now, from a bookstore somewhere in Soho, whose name I have on the tip of my tongue, but I'm forgetting. It's... yeah, no. I'll put it on the screen somewhere. I got Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose. I actually saw Steve mention this recently in his historical fiction masterlist video, and he mentioned that he hated the cover. I actually really like it. Again, it's very floppy. I have walked past the UK version of this book so many times. It's from Vintage Classics, one of those with the full red spine, and it's super stiff, so it sucks, so I was not going to get it. So, walking past this in the bookstore, I had to pick it up. The year is 1347. While Brother William of Baskerville is investigating accusations of heresy at a wealthy Italian abbey, his inquiries are disrupted by a series of bizarre deaths. Turning his practiced detective skills to finding the killer, he relies on logic, Aristotle, theology, Thomas Aquinas, empirical insights, Roger Bacon, and his own wry humour and ferocious curiosity. With the aid of his young apprentice, William scours the abbey from its stables to the labyrinthine library, piecing together evidence and deciphering cryptic symbols and coded manuscripts to uncover the truth about this place, where the most interesting things happen at night. I think one of the things that's so much fun about New York City is that feeling of wandering around, exploring the great skyscrapers, the bridges, the parks, the rivers, and then just stumbling across like great bookstores like the Strand. I spent my birthday there. I went up top of the rock for the second time, because why not? It's great up there. And then about 5 or 6 days in, I took an Amtrak train from Penn Station all the way to Boston, which is where the next few books come in. In Boston, I obviously went to Steve's beloved Brattle bookshop. So this is probably the closest bookstore to the Strand that isn't in New York, that you find anywhere else. It's got 3 floors inside. It's much smaller than the Strand, but it's really heavily stacked. But it has a significantly better sale lot outside, where the books are arranged by $5, $3, $1, as Steve mentions in his videos all the time. And the selection out there is significantly better than the selection outside the Strand, which is already pretty decent. I got this from the Britannica Great Books series. You can see it still has the $5 price tag on it. This is a collection of Tacitus. I thought, why not? $5, good edition like this. It's laid out like this, like a Bible. I just thought it'd be interesting, and the great thing about the sale lot is that, $5 for something like this, so. And then something from a series which I walked past in every bookstore and considered and passed up on, and eventually, for the prices at the Brattle, inside, not the sale lot, I got this, which is one of the P.G. Wodehouse Jeeves and Wooster books, which Steve also talks about a ton. This is Carry On Jeeves. I really wasn't sure which one to go for. I've never read any of them. This just looked pretty good. I think this was half price, so it retails for about $20, and I got it for $10. That was the Brattle bookshop. But that wasn't the only place I went to in Boston. I crossed over the bridge to Harvard, and at the Harvard bookstore, I got a few other books. And so from the sale lot of the Harvard Bookstore, which is in the basement, I got this for only a few dollars, which is a John le Carré novel, Agent Running in the Field. I'm still yet to read a Carré novel, a le Carré novel, I should say. I have I have one actually physically behind me on that Penguin bookshelf. But you know, what's the harm for a few other dollars? If he feels like a writer that I'm going to love, at least based on the films that I've seen from him and everything I've heard. And this is not too long as well, so that's always an easy in. This is significantly newer though, because the back says Ed hates Brexit, hates Trump, and hates his job at a soulless media agency. I wonder what Steve thinks of this. And I also got half price from the sale lot, or sale area, in the Harvard Bookstore, Volume 1 of the Monster manga. So the anime of Monster was one of my favorite TV shows ever. I was watching it in the penultimate year of high school, I think. I was watching it in my breaks in between classes. I was coming home middle of the day to watch this, before school, after school. I was just hooked. It was one of the most engrossing mystery shows or mystery anything that I've ever watched. It's allegorical, but not in an annoying, preachy kind of way. It's a sort of Christ versus Antichrist story, but it's not in your face in that way. I mean, there are a lot of biblical quotes that will start before episodes, but it feels like you can get engrossed in a mystery without even focusing on that stuff, but those ideas enhance everything else. And I think that's kind of my favorite type of work. Let me get up close to the microphone for this little reading. Everyone faces uncertainty at some point in their lives. Even a brilliant surgeon like Kenzo Tenma is no exception. But there's no way for him to know that his decision to stop chasing professional success and instead concentrate on his oath to save people's lives will result in the birth of an abomination. The questions of good and evil now take on a terrifyingly real dimension. Years later in Germany, during the tumultuous post-reunification period, middle-aged childless couples are being killed one after another. The serial killer's identity is known. The reasons why he kills are not. Dr. Tenma sets out on a journey to find the killer's twin sister, who may hold some clues to solving the enigma of the monster. I don't even think that does this justice. It is a serial killer hunt. It's this incredible surgeon who abandons his job, his life, because he no longer believes in the system and the corruption and everything, and just sets out to find this serial killer, to save lives. And he's on the run anyway, because he's become a suspect, he's become hated. This is amazing. So I'm excited to read this, because I never have. I've only watched it. So I spent a few days exploring Boston. I was staying in the Citizen M North Station Hotel. Hotels in Boston were difficult to find, so that's what I had to go with. It was good, by the way. I'm not saying it wasn't, but it was just more money than I wanted to spend. But, whatever. Boston was beautiful. It was less exciting than somewhere like New York City, which I think anyone would assume. It's much smaller and there are less places to go to. But it was significantly cleaner. And actually it felt like the most English city in the US that I've been to so far. Also, I had started reading Moby Dick just before then. I'm still reading it now, because the travel stopped my reading a little bit. And anyways, I'm getting near the end. Moby Dick's great. So going to Boston, Moby Dick is a New England book and all that. It felt extra fun. After a few days there, I took a flight from Boston to LA. And I think I had a much better experience than I did the first time. Much more beach time, more Malibu, more Manhattan Beach, and a little less of the more central touristy areas. And I think I found that experience much more fun. I spent a lot of time with a friend of mine that lives over in LA, and we went to a few bookstores there, including one that I went to the year before as well, just down the Griffith Observatory. I took a little e-scooter down, parked it outside this bookstore, which is called Skylight Books, where I got this. My Lunches with Orson. Orson Welles is one of my favorite filmmakers, but favorite people to listen to be around, to watch a video of, to see his documentaries. He's a director and he acts in a lot of his own films. So you get to see his personality a lot. He's done a lot of interviews. He's done documentaries, which he's been in. Like F for Fake, which I think is the best documentary ever. I have the criterion somewhere here. He made a film adaptation of Othello, for example, which was fantastic in its own right, and I think he starred in it as Othello, and then he made a documentary called On Othello, or Making of Othello, which I thought was also fantastic, one of the best behind-the-scenes documentaries. So he's one of those directors that I feel I have a much closer connection to than your average director who's just behind the screen. So a book like this, I think I could really benefit from. Not benefit from in some sort of, I don't know, acquiring value type of way, but just enjoy. I like the cover, even though it feels like something I would usually dislike. I think it's a nice picture. I like the film reels. I like the floppiness. Also, there's a few bookmarks here. A couple from the Strand. And this from the Getty Villa in LA. Sort of at the beginning of Malibu, which I went to. There have long been rumours of a lost cache of tapes containing private conversations between Orson Welles and his friend, the director Henry Jaglom. Recorded over regular lunches in the years before Welles died, the tapes gathering dust in a garage did indeed exist, and this book reveals for the first time what they contain. Sounds fun. I feel like I can't go wrong with this. Also, it basically being transcribed interviews makes me think that it's going to be a very quick read. So, yeah, I bought it. I love Orson Welles. And I think the day before that I actually went to the last bookstore, that's the name of it, but the second branch, the one in North Hollywood, which I think actually might be bigger. The guy who runs it was saying that this is the main hub, and then we send the books from here to the more popular branch, which is in downtown LA. This was a really, really big used bookstore. I got some gifts, I think, a couple of books from my mother and my sister. There are some other books that I bought that weren't for me, but, you know, I've already given them away. And a couple of them were from this bookstore. If you go to LA, I definitely recommend it. You could probably try the downtown LA version if North Hollywood is too much out of the way. But for my friend and I, that was sort of the direction that we were going anyways. And in terms of ever traveling to Los Angeles, I think it is better than a lot of people say, because there's this sort of there's obviously this glamorization of the city that you'll get from the films, from GTA 5, from things like that maybe set standards in a different stratosphere. Then you go and then you find that the main city is a lot dirtier than you would have believed. There's so many more homeless people, there's a lot more crime, the subway system is terrible, things like that, you know, would put you off the city and make you think the La La Land dream that I had is so far from reality that I never want to be in a place like this again. I think if you just go with different expectations and avoid a lot of the main touristy places, you'll have so much more fun. For me, it was going to the beaches. Coming from New York and Boston and doing a lot of walking in cities, I didn't want to force that same experience in LA where it's not really walkable in the same way. So for me, the most fun I had was going to Manhattan Beach, for example, going in the morning, going to these breakfast cafes and diners, spending time on some of the great beaches there. Venice Beach and Santa Monica Beach are the sort of the main popular places. By the way, I know this isn't book discussion, but I thought I'd interweave this in. Weave this in? Whatever. Venice and Santa Monica are the more popular touristy beaches. They're going to be much busier, but they're way dirtier and less fun, I think. You should go there, you know, see it, be there, but most of your time, I think, if in terms of beaches, should be spent in those little pockets of areas a little more on the outside. Especially Malibu, which is one of the best places that I've ever been to, in my opinion. It's so much more peaceful, so much calmer, so much more beautiful as well, I think. My friend and I drove along the, what is it called? The PCH, the Pacific Coast Highway. A lot of it ravaged by the fires that happened earlier this year, or was it last year? And they're trying to rebuild those areas. But the beauty is still there for everyone to see. The drive is amazing because there's nothing obstructing your view of the coast, so you're just seeing the Pacific Ocean, the mountains. The beaches there are amazing. I'm forgetting the names of some of the beaches that we went to, but they were out of this world. Huge, great waves, clean, way cleaner than some of the downtown area beaches. Less busy, but you know, it has enough of a crowd for you not to feel like you're the only person in the world. Yeah, go to Malibu. If next time I go to LA, that's going to be like 90% of my time. It's amazing over there. Anyways, few days in LA, and then I took a short, like 50-minute long flight to San Francisco, which is one of my favorite places on earth. Another place that seems to get a horrific rap in the media and the news. I'm not really sure why. Potentially political. Regardless, you should go there. San Francisco is amazing. For me, there's an extra connection because I support the Golden State Warriors. So that's an NBA team. So being there, seeing the stadium, seeing fans around the city where I wouldn't see that here in England, it adds something extra. But even if that wasn't there, the nature and the feeling of adventure in a city like that is just out of this world. The bridge is the best bridge ever. I love that bridge. I'm going to put so many pictures of the bridge there. And by the way, all the pictures and videos I'm putting on here, unless there's something like related to a book that I'm adding, they're my own. Yes, I take great pictures. I actually took them all on the phone that I'm filming this on now, which is an iPhone 14 Pro. So yes, you can also take great pictures. You don't need to buy a really expensive camera or anything. Anyway, San Francisco is amazing. The beaches, it's a different experience there because it's a lot cooler, a lot windier. So you have to pick your moments if you want to have one of those sunny, get in the water type beach days. The Pacific Ocean anyway feels really cold. It's going to be cooler up in San Francisco because of the temperatures. But it's just different. This time it's more walking on the beaches as opposed to getting into the waves. It's walking on the hills and the cliffs, seeing the nature, walking past the bridge, on the bridge, cycling around. Cycling, scootering in San Francisco is amazing. The Bay Area as a whole, crossing the bridge over if you want to go to Oakland, or if you want to see, what's the university again? I went there. I wandered around a little bit. I'm forgetting the name. Anyways, it's amazing. I went to a few bookstores there, and from a bookstore on Haight Street, I got David Copperfield. This is an edition that I definitely could have gotten here in the UK, but I found it there in a used bookstore for a lot cheaper, so I picked it up. I'd been looking for David Copperfield and A Tale of Two Cities, because those are the Dickens books that I'm most interested in reading. I've been looking for good copies of them everywhere, and I hadn't really found any until this, which is heavy, very heavy, but opens up very nicely like this. Everyman's Library editions. Sorry, by the way, sometimes if I'm not speaking into the microphone and the audio is getting muffled or whatever. I hope it's good. Anyways, Everyman's Library editions, you should already know they're amazing. They're built to last. They have the acid-free pages that aren't going to yellow like they would with one of my beloved Penguin classics. They're built to last. They look great when you take off the... okay, I'm not going to do it. When you take off the dust jacket, I think they look even better. They're great. Dickens is great. Some may disagree. I love Great Expectations, one of my top 10 favorite novels, books of all time. This is maybe his best book, according to what I'm hearing, so I bought it. And by the way, Haight Street and that Haight-Ashbury area is a ton of fun. Definitely go there. Definitely go to the best park on the planet, better than Central Park, which is amazing, Golden Gate Park. You could spend a lifetime in there to really complete it, to see everything. I cycled through there basically every day, different parts of it, different angles. There's a deli on Haight Street just before you get to Golden Gate Park, which called Gus's. I think there are a few other branches in SF as well, but that one is next to the park. So I go there. You can make your own sandwich, pick your bread, pick your toppings, fillings, whatever. Great sandwich, great bread, and take it into the park. I'll eat it there. I'll cycle around. There are museums by the way, the size of this park is unimaginable if you've never been to one of these kind of parks. If you're from England, if you've been to London, you'll be familiar with parks like Hyde Park, for example, which I think is the biggest of the 5 royal parks that we have. Golden Gate Park is staggeringly bigger. If you look up how many Hyde Parks you can fit in there, your mind will be blown. If you know a different park, you can look it up for reference. Your mind will definitely be blown. Someone's going to pull up some park somewhere in the Shenzhen region of China that's bigger and more amazing. I'm sure there is, but in terms of what I've seen, this is the best park. Sorry. It starts in a nice area, Haight-Ashbury, and you go all the way down to Ocean Beach, which is a lovely area. So yeah, go there. Nice used bookstore on the way. Go to San Francisco. Go to Malibu. Go to Boston. Go to New York. Sorry, I had to cut and come back because my phone was about to die. And I just realized I've been looking a little away from you. I don't like that. It's not my intention, and I don't want to look like one of those. Am I meant to be looking here? Am I looking at you now? Is it here? Am I meant to be looking right here? I feel like I'm looking... No, I mean... I'm going to get dizzy. I'm going to console myself by the fact that most people probably watch this while they're doing something else and are just listening to me. So it doesn't matter so much, but... Then I'm going to put a lot of effort into the way it looks, so... Is that really consolation? I don't know. Anyways, the place where I got this gave me this. I got a lot of bookmarks. I think I'll probably show them off in a moment. Which is nice, because I feel like you can... Well, you could have too many bookmarks, but I use them a lot. Sometimes I'm reading different books, or there are sort of bigger anthologies, like I have the Montaigne essay book over there, and I want to mark where I am in the book, but it's not something I'm taking out all the time, so it's good to leave the bookmark in there. So yeah, I've got plenty now. That was San Francisco. I spent like a week there, and then I flew back to New York for another sort of 4 or 5 day period to finish off the trip. And somehow I bought even more books than the first time I was there at the beginning of the trip. So let's go over them. So I went to the Strand again, but not the same branch. This time the one on the Upper West Side, which is probably my favorite area in New York and one of my favorite areas in the world. I got this lovely little thing, By Night in Chile, by Roberto Bolaño. I had never heard of this. I probably had heard of the writer before, but I don't know anything about him. It just looked good and sounded good. The book that catapulted Roberto Bolaño into... Is it Bolaño? Because they have that little thing on the end. The book that catapulted Roberto Bolaño into international literary stardom, By Night in Chile, is the final testimony of Sebastián Urrutia Lacroix, Chilean priest and member of Opus Dei, eminent literary critic and failed poet, as he is haunted by a shadowy figure from his past. In Urrutia's feverish last hours, a deluge of memories pours from him, of hobnobbing with Santiago's most unctuous literati, of undertaking a mission to save Europe's decaying cathedrals from existential threat by pigeon excrement, and so on. It sounds crazy. It's really short. I like having a good number of short books to read after a long book, so I recently read War and Peace and finished that. It became my favorite novel. I'll probably do a favorite novels book video at some point, but and I needed some short books afterwards to maybe partially get that little dopamine hit of finishing a book, but also just to not have such a huge, overwhelming thing, which was War and Peace. It was incredibly fun. I loved it, but there is a different feeling when you have that huge book. Right now I'm reading Moby Dick, so having things like this to read afterwards I think is nice. $16 is a lot for something this small, but it's floppy. It feels nice. I got Neuromancer by William Gibson. Mancer?
Neuromancer.
This is one of the most highly recommended sci-fi novels. I was getting into, but not actually reading, science fiction during Rocket's... Was it Rocket Summer? Is that what it's called? In July. I was looking like, should I read this? Should I read that? I don't think I actually ended up reading any of them, but a lot of them were floating around my head just before I traveled. So seeing this in a nice edition, I like this cover actually. It feels different to the covers that I usually get of classics or modern classics. It feels more like a non-fiction cover, but I think it's nice to have that change. It's this bright neon green, so it's going to look different on the shelf. Case was the sharpest data thief in the Matrix until he crossed the wrong people and they crippled his nervous system. banishing him from cyberspace. Now a mysterious new employer has recruited him for a last chance run at an unthinkably powerful artificial intelligence. With a dead man riding shotgun and Molly, a mirror-eyed street samurai, to watch his back, Case is ready for the adventure that upped the ante of an entire genre of fiction. This sounds like something I would have loved when I was younger, but that's no reason not to read it now. So it also feels like something I'll probably read pretty soon as well. Super floppy, nice to hold. You know, those are the parameters so far. Also, am I now looking in the right direction? I really hope I am. And then my first Murakami novel. This is Kafka on the Shore. Murakami is a writer that I've heard so much about, so much positive, so much negative. Steve doesn't like him, or this book, I think. But you know, he's such a major figure that I feel like I should at least read something. And I liked the physical copy here. It's magical realism. Not to say I've suddenly become a huge magical realism fan, but I really liked 100 Years of Solitude. I felt like if I was going to fall in love with any of Murakami's books, it was this one. So I got it. There's a cat on the cover. You know, I have a cat. I love my cat. She was here earlier, but she just, you know, she's in and out all the time of my room. Not of my house. I'm not allowing that, sorry. Yeah, I went on a tangent there. Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. Super floppy. I think the real test for floppiness is just doing this. You can see the flop there. Obviously you can open it as well. In Kafka on the Shore, we meet a teenage boy, Kafka Tamura, who is on the run, and Nakata, an aging simpleton who is drawn to Kafka for reasons that he cannot fathom. As their paths converge, acclaimed author Haruki Murakami enfolds readers in a world where cats talk, fish fall from the sky, and spirits... Oh, spirits, sorry, it was... and spirits slip out of their bodies to make love or commit murder, in what is truly a remarkable journey. Kafka on the Shore displays one of the world's great storytellers at the peak of his powers. Something funny, I'm currently watching the CW show, Supernatural, so hearing this mention of spirits coming out to murder and make love is incredibly funny if you watch that show, and you know some of the characters and what they do. I was going to say you can't go wrong with this, but you probably can according to what I've heard. But I'm going to try it anyway at some point. It seems interesting. I should at least read a Murakami novel. And go to the Upper West Side, please. If you ever go to New York, spend a lot of time there because it's so much fun. Just wandering the streets there, seeing the different delis, the cafes. You can see the museums there. So there's the Natural History Museum, which I went to on my birthday on the first part of this US journey. Natural History Museum is amazing. There's an old T-Rex, a T-Rex skull which was found like 100 years ago. Obviously, its actual date is like a huge number of years old. You can walk in Central Park, you can walk alongside it, or you can go to Riverside Park, which is probably where more of the Upper West Side residents spend their time, because Central Park is super touristy. It's lovely as well, but you know, this is another place. It's on the river. It's got a great cycle and running path. I think I cycled there on my birthday. Or was it the day before? I can't remember. I love cycling, as you can tell. Especially in really scenic areas. And New York has a pretty good e-bike system. You can get manual bikes as well. But they have a pretty good, you know... you can use the Lyft app on your phone. Rent bikes there. Pretty expensive, but you know, if you're doing it a few times, you're not going to break the bank. Yeah, Upper West Side is great, Central Park is great. Upper East Side is also really cool, and they have that incredibly famous, expensive deli that I'm now forgetting. I have a few of their bags. Are they anywhere here? No, they're not. Okay. Yeah, those are amazing. And speaking of Central Park, the Strand actually opened a little pop-up store there when I was there for the second time. I didn't notice it the first time, so I'm going to assume it wasn't there. Maybe it was. Maybe I didn't go to that section of the park. But I got maybe the one book that breaks my rule, because this is available in the UK, and it is not a floppy book. It's not the stiffest. It can, you know, it can open up like this, so it's pretty good. But the discount was really good, so I got it. The Jungle Books. I've been wanting to read these for ages. Obviously, I grew up with the Disney film. Kipling is, you know, one of the great literary legends. Steve Donahue talks about this all the time, so I picked it up. Do I even need to read the back? The blurb, the story of the man cub Mowgli, raised by wolves in the Indian jungle, guided by his mentors Baloo the bear, Bagheera the black panther, the ancient python Kaa. You gotta know this. And if you thought we were done with the Strand, you are mistaken. But before then, I went downtown, which is where I stayed the first part of this. So, there's 2 New Yorks in this whole US trip. The first time I went, I don't want to say first time because I went there a year before. The first part of this trip in New York, I stayed in downtown Manhattan. I'm forgetting the hotel that I stayed at. I think it was the Courtyard by Marriott downtown. This is the financial district area. Downtown can be a little confusing if you've never been to New York, if you've never been to Manhattan, because usually you just say downtown, meaning the sort of central hub of the city. This probably was, but for tourists now, that's definitely Midtown, where you'll find Times Square and most of the skyscrapers of the city. Downtown is the original part of Manhattan, the oldest part of the island. It's structured physically very different than the rest of the city, which is sort of just designed with a ruler and grid lines and everything. So it's super easy to navigate the rest of the city. Not so in downtown, but I stayed there. It was really nice. I saw the One World Trade Center, the 9/11 Memorial, which I didn't see the year before when I went to New York because I stayed in Midtown both times. And yeah, I did a double New York thing the previous time I went to the US. So I've been to New York City 4 times now. It's amazing. Definitely go there if you can afford it. Downtown is cool. They have a lot of bookstores, a lot that I went to, but the one that I got a book from was the Mysterious Bookshop. I got this from Rex Stout. These are the first 2 Near a Wolf stories. So I think the previous video I made was a Near a Wolf video of When the Doorbell Rang, or I'm forgetting the exact title of that book, but I loved that. So I got this. Floppy. Big type font, which is nice. It was $18 for 2 Near a Wolf mysteries. These were the first 2, I think, Fer de Lance and the League of Frightened Men. So I picked them up. I'll definitely read these. I'm excited to read them. Well, I'm going to read everything, hopefully. Well, hopefully, unless, I meant hopefully unless, like, I don't know, something crazy happens to me, because, you shouldn't take any day for granted. But obviously I intend to read everything here, otherwise I wouldn't have paid all that money. But this one I want to read sooner rather than later, because I loved the other Rex Stout Near a Wolf story that I read. The Mysterious Bookshop is a really cool bookstore. They just sell mysteries and crime novels and things like that. But I actually think it's cool sometimes to step into one of these focused genre bookstores, because they're going to have more in-depth selection on that particular genre, and it's just different. Because the Strand or actually basically any of the other bookstores I went to, any Barnes & Noble, anything's just going to have a bit of everything. But a genre like mystery and crime, which I love, it's nice to see huge bookshelves stacked with them. This is very close to the One World Trade Center and the 9/11 Memorial. If you're ever there, check this bookstore out. Okay, now back to the Strand in Midtown, specifically in Union Square, which is the main one. And that also has a big Barnes & Noble. I think potentially the biggest retail bookstore on the planet. I remember reading that when I went to the US the first time a year, like in 2024. It's a great bookstore. It has a great Criterion selection if you're ever there. And, well, a great retail bookstore, I should say. I don't think what I got was from there. I think what I got was from the Strand. Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. Another one of these great sci-fi classics / modern classics that you have to read. So I got it. Raised by Martians on Mars, Valentine Michael Smith is a human who has never seen another member of his species. Sent to Earth, he is a stranger who must learn what it is to be a man, but his own beliefs and his powers far exceed the limits of humankind, and as he teaches grokking and water sharing, he also inspires a transformation that will alter Earth's inhabitants forever. Yeah, I don't know a huge amount about this, but it's one of those sort of premier sci-fi novels, and it was really floppy and looked nice. So all that combined to make me think, okay, let's pick it up. I actually think the opening line is quite fun. Once upon a time, when the world was young, there was a Martian named Smith. The first segment of the book is called His Immaculate Origin. One of the floppiest books as well that I got. So I'm excited to have this, to have Neuromancer, and to have the next book on my list. I'm not sure which bookstore I got this from. Probably the Strand. Actually, I think definitely the Strand. The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Another one of these modern sci-fi classics that you have to read, probably along with another 5 of her books, like The Left Hand of Darkness and so on. This is the one that I got. I'm excited to dive into this and the rest of Le Guin's works, who's so widely loved that I'm feeling left out. As is kind of the case with a lot of these sci-fi novels. Science fiction is a genre that I've experienced so much through film and television, but not so much through literature, so I want to change that line. I'm already a big fan, so I don't need much. You don't need to win me over, really. I'm already there. Le Guin's most intricate and beautifully realised book, a moving story that is also about loneliness, will, and what it means to return home. That's from Meng Jin from The Atlantic, one of the little quotes on the back. I'm happy to have grown my little sci-fi collection, and I think one of the best things about this trip is that I got a diverse range of books, so it feels like there's more choice when I look at my bookshelf. I do a lot of reading solely on the Kindle, books that I don't have physically, so obviously there the range is infinite, but I do like having a physical book. I think my favourite way of reading right now is combining both, and having my Kindle and having a physical copy that's nice and floppy and light and easy to read, and switching between them, because I go on a lot of walks, especially after meals, and I'll take my Kindle out. I don't know, I'm staying out, like right now, what time is it? I don't know, it's late, it's past midnight, I think. Yeah, just gone midnight. I'll probably maybe have a meal in 2 hours time and go out for a walk, and I'll take my Kindle with me just around the neighbourhood at night. It doesn't matter that it's really dark outside because the Kindle has its own lighting and everything. Anyways, I don't want this to be an e-reader advert or something. But then coming home, I can hold a very nice copy of the book, something where I can see the bookmark moving along. It feels nice because it looks nice, and the whole experience adds and makes me want to read it more. But then I have the ease of the Kindle and the whole thing. I think it works really well. So that's the way I've been reading now. Also, let me quickly show you some of the bookmarks. So I got this from Summit 1 Vanderbilt, which I went up on a second New York visit, where my dad and my uncle came to the US as well, so I was showing them around. Yeah, Summit 1 is really cool to go up. I still think Top of the Rock is the best observation deck. By the way, if you don't know what an observation deck is, it's basically the top of a skyscraper, a viewing deck to look out on the city. Summit 1 is the most popular, the busiest. It's the newest, I think, and it's a lot of fun, but it's mostly just closed off interior. It's more of an experience, not the best for taking pictures, but maybe the best just to see the whole city. I think Top of the Rock is the best for pictures, and my favourite. But I got this bookmark. I got these samurai bookmarks from San Francisco, from the Golden Gate Park. They have a Japanese gardens in there, and these are the bookmarks. They look like this. There's like 5 of them in here, with these tassels as well, which is great. I got this little cat. I got this from the Mysterious Bookshop, the one in downtown Manhattan. This was an advert for a book called The Fourth Wing. It's a colouring book, but the bookmark looks cool. I got this, I think I got this from my mother actually. I don't know why I have it still with me. I should give it to her. From Barnes & Noble. This is my favourite of the free bookmarks. I got this from Skylight Books in Hollywood. Yeah, this one looks really cool. This is from the Brattle. It's just, one of the free sort of advert type bookmarks. And the last of the novels, Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. England in the 1520s is a heartbeat from disaster. If the king dies without a male heir, the country could be destroyed by civil war. Henry VIII wants to annul his marriage of 20 years and marry Anne Boleyn. The Pope and most of Europe opposes him. Into the impasse steps Thomas Cromwell, a wholly original man, a charmer and a bully, both idealist and opportunist, astute in reading people and implacable in his ambition. But Henry is volatile, one day tender, one day murderous. Cromwell rises to heights no one could have imagined. The Boleyns, the Howards, the old families and the new cannot fathom why the king so trusts and relies on a man with no title and an obscured past, even after Cromwell's mentor, Cardinal Wolsey, falls from favour. Cromwell manages to deliver the king's wishes, but what will be the price of his triumph? That is an amazing blurb. For what I've heard is an amazing book. Historical fiction after War and Peace is something that I'd really like to get more into. Steve hates this cover. I like it. Steve, you know, mocked it in his little historical fiction video. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm excited. I'm really excited to read this book. I've heard it's, you know, slower start and a little more sedentary, so I'm just going to keep that in the back of my mind. I don't want to get like, I don't want to think it's going to be some crazy James Bond thriller. Not that I was expecting that anyways, but I'm going to go into it sort of slowly, you know, expecting a slow ride, which a lot of my favorite books are anyway. It seems very exciting. It's very long. Almost 600 pages, and it's one of a trilogy, I think. I think the third book is the Mirror and the Light. I think, you know, in England you grow up with the history of the Tudors, with Henry VIII, with these stories, so a book like this really appeals to me. And, you know, if the prose is as amazing as I've heard it is, how gripping it is, how engrossing it is, if all that comes true, or is true, then I'm sure it's going to be one of my favorite books ever. That ends the novels, but I do have one last thing, and it's probably the biggest thing, the best used book deal I've ever gotten in my life. Let me hold it over here. It's in this big bag from the Strand. It's the entire set of the Monster manga. I'm going to put this down because it is extremely heavy. If you're still watching, which, as Steve always jokes, according to the YouTube algorithm, nobody's watching at this point, but if you are, can you drop a guess just below how much you think I paid from a big bookstore like the Strand for that entire series of Monster? By the way, in basically pristine condition. They look amazing, all of them. You're never going to guess. It's $18. When I saw the listed price, I thought it was just for one of them. So I assumed I could get this for $18. And I thought, well, why would I want that? I got the first volume for $10. Maybe I'll see if I like it as much as the show, and then I'll go from there. But I was asking one of the guys in the store, and he was saying, no, it's $18 for the whole thing. But I don't know, I wasn't convinced. I wasn't convinced by him. $18 for the entire thing. That's how much, like the retail price of this is $19.99. So I was going to get the entire series for less than the price of one. But the guy's like, no, that's the whole thing. So I just took it and ran. I was stunned. I got that a few hours before I flew home to London again. It was amazing. I put it, I think, in my carry-on, and then moved some of the things from my carry-on suitcase into my main suitcase, and I went home with that. The entire Monster series. So I'm probably going to sell this copy, because, you know, what the hell am I going to do with it? I have them all now. And that brings an end to this whole US trip. I came back. A week later, I went to Amsterdam. I don't think I'll make a video on that, but I went to Amsterdam to watch the Dutch Grand Prix, which was a birthday gift for my sister, and I went along with her. Amsterdam was great. Definitely go there if you're interested. But I didn't get any books there because I'd already spent way too much in the US. I got a few books in London, but I don't know. Should I make a video on that? It's just a few. I could make a mini haul if you're interested. You can let me know. But that's it. If you want a video on these individual US cities, like a thorough in-depth travel video with a bunch of like footage that I got from there, I've shown you some of it, but if you want a whole thing for these cities, like a New York travel guide or something like that, then let me know. I'd be happy to make that, but if nobody wants it, then it's going to be a lot of effort, so I don't know. I might just make it anyways. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. I don't know if I'll ever spend this much money again, unless there's a Criterion sale. Thank you. Goodbye.